What's up everyone, welcome back to Just Finish Coding. This is part 3 of our Flappy Bird series on Scratch 3, so let's get coding.
Just finished coding.
Now quick interjection here, if you've not watched part 1 and 2, please watch those videos first before you come here because we're picking up from where we left off and you'll be very lost. I'll leave a card for you right here. Please watch the videos and then come right back. In this video, we'll be mainly dealing with sound effects, changing our background, and a whole lot more. So without further ado, let's get right into our program. Before I start to import my backgrounds and all of that, I do want to change the speed of the bird when it actually jumps up. And I initially said that 17 was the optimal number, but I'm more inclined now towards 14.5 because at this rate the level is almost impossible to complete and the bird keeps hitting the pipe. So change both of those under the up arrow key and the space key is pressed, and now you can move on to importing your background. To import your background, all you have to do is to click on stage and within choose a background, click on upload background, navigate through your libraries file until you come upon this file which says dark background and just click on it. Now keep in mind that even in the stage we can code, so I'm just going to do the initialization of the background in the stage itself. So when the green flag is clicked, I'm going to be switching the background to the light background because that's how Flappy Bird always starts. And now let's get into changing the background based on the score. Our general idea with changing the background is going to be like this. So in case the score is 5, then it's going to be switching to the dark background. Then when the score gets to 10, it's going to switch again to the light background. Then when the score is 15, it's once again going to switch to the dark background and so on. So we keep on switching and alternating between these two backgrounds when our score is actually divisible by 5, if you do understand what I'm saying. So to factor that in, what we first have to do is to have a repeat until or a forever loop. I'm going to be using a repeat until because I don't want this loop to go on when the game is actually over. So similar to how I coded the ground sprite, I'm going to say repeat until. We're going to repeat until the game over is equals to true. So game over equals true. Yeah, we still haven't programmed the game over yet, but I will be coming to that in a few more minutes. So we're going to repeat this loop until game over equals to true, and the simple logic would be just saying, okay, I'm going to grab an if then, and here I'm going to put in an operator, and you can grab in this another pretty useful operator, I would say, from the operators category called mod, and this is going to return the remainder. So once you do have the remainder, what you're going to say is if score mod 5 is equals to 0, which means that the score is divisible by 5. In this case, well, I'm going to just change the background, and since we're switching backgrounds, it's more wise to use this block of code which says next background. And you may think this would work, but it wouldn't. For the same reason, our score and the whole pipe thing flopped up, and that's because here's what happens. Now you can see even though the score is 0, the backdrop just keeps changing really awkwardly, and it's going to do that every time the score is divisible by 5. Now the reason that happens is that once again the score takes a while to change, and every single time the bird has to go through the pipe would only be a score increase, and when the bird's actually just waiting for the pipe to come to it, at that point of time the score is going to remain as it was, and we're just going to keep switching backdrop after backdrop, and that's not a good thing. So to do this, you need another variable that would regulate this if then, and I'm going to call it similar to changed. I'm going to call it bg changed. Initially I'm going to set background change to be false, and write no, not facile, false, and I'm going to have an AND operator right here. So if the score mod 5 is equal to 0, and we are also going to have our changed variable to be false, bg changed variable equals false. Well, then in this case it means that we've not changed the background just as yet, so we're going to change the background, and then we'll also set bg changed to be true. So this way you would have this loop regulated, but what would happen is that when the score actually gets to 5, it's going to work well, and then after it gets to 5, then something really weird is going to happen, and then we're going to start having multiple bugs because it's not going to change when the background is equals to 10, because this bg changed variable is always going to be true. So to fix that, what you need to do is to grab another if then and put it right below this if then, but within the repeat until loop. And now you want to have an AND operator, and within the first AND you want to have a NOT, and you just want to duplicate this exact condition of the score and put that in the NOT. And as far as the second condition is concerned, you can duplicate this, but you want to change the false value to be true. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're basically going to set the background value to be false. So here's what we're basically doing. We're saying if the score is not having a remainder of 0 when it's divisible by 5, and that's what this left side of the loop basically does. And on the right side of the loop, we're just saying, and we have already changed the background, in which case, well, the score is now 6 or 7 or 11 or 12, depending on whichever stage of the game you're at. So now we can set background change back to false, so that when the score eventually reaches a score that's divisible by 5, then we can actually switch backgrounds and alternate between the light and dark backgrounds. So initially we did want a light background, so when it's 0, this condition would technically be true and we'll switch to the next background. So just to avoid that, I'm just going to have a bigger if then and encompass all of this, and I'm just going to have if not score is equals to 0. So it's pretty simple code. This thing is only going to happen if the score is not equals to 0, and if it is, then it's just going to automatically switch to the light backdrop, because that's how Flappy Bird starts and that's the way we want it. Now that your backdrop is working fine, let's now get into the end screens. So within choose a sprite, I'm going to click on upload a sprite and upload the sprite which says when green flag is clicked. And within its code, when the green flag is clicked, I'm going to say hide the sprite, because we want it to do all the stuff that it's going to actually do only when it receives the game over message, which we broadcasted in the bird sprite. So now when green flag is clicked, we're going to hide, and only when we receive game over do we actually start doing our stuff. So initially I'm going to be setting the game over variable to be true, because that's what this variable is holding. So set game over to be true. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show this sprite, and I'm also going to do one more thing, and this is going to allow the user to see the score in a nice text message. So I'm going to say or whatever for 2 seconds, say hello for 2 seconds, and I'm going to change this hello a little bit by going to operators and grabbing this block which says join, and I'm going to say score and put a colon and a space, and where this banana is, I'm going to change that and put in the score variable right there. And I'm also going to hide the variable score right before I say this. So hide variable score, and that reminds me to actually show variable score right at the beginning, not set score to 0. I'm going to show variable score, and this is going to make our variable actually pop up on top. So show variable score, and right after that we're going to hide. So keep in mind that all this code is going to run parallelly while everything is running. So when the game is actually over, we'd actually want to delete every single clone that's in there. Okay, so to do that, what you need to do is to head over to this head over to the pipe sprite, and when you have your repeat until loop, you just want to have a big if condition. Okay, so if actually not if, and if else. So if game over is equals to false, then well, we can execute all this code. And if the game over is equals to true, then it means that we want to delete the clone. So just put this in here, and within our else we'll just put in one line of code, and that's delete clone. So there we are. That's pretty much it. So this is going to ensure all the clones are deleted when they do receive the message game over. And once the clones are deleted, there's going to be nothing on stage except the backdrop, and that's when this entire sprite pops up. Now our speed is also going in a really weird fashion, so I'm just going to head over to the bird sprite and say after I broadcast game over, I'm just going to be setting the speed to be 0. Not exactly necessary, but I think it just makes a little bit of sense to do that. Now head over back to your end screens, and right after this code is done, what you want to do is to basically stop everything that's happening. So I'm just going to have one line of code right there, and that is stop all. And this is going to ensure that your program actually terminates and no code is running once this code has finished. Now that your end screen is in place, let's go ahead and code in our thumbnail. So to do that, just head over to choose a sprite, click on upload sprite, and then click on the sprite which says thumbnail.svg. And you should have your thumbnail pop up, and it's going to be nice and big just like this one, almost fitted to scale. So since it's a little bit off, I'm just going to move it right there, and I think that should cover any gap that emerges. So this thumbnail is going to start when the green flag is clicked. So when the green flag is clicked, I'm going to say go to x0y0, and I'm going to show the thumbnail. And I think I forgot to add that, go to x0y0, so I'm going to add that right now. So go to x0y0, and then we're going to show that thumbnail. Now keep in mind, this is when the bird is actually playing, so that isn't really a good thing for the bird to actually drop while this thumbnail is open and it's preventing the user from seeing the bird. So what you need to do is just have, so you can see in the thumbnail, I say click A key to begin. So when the A key is pressed, and you can grab that from the events category, not when I receive, nor when its sprite is clicked, you want to just say when space key is pressed and change it to when A key is pressed. And if this is the case, then what we're going to do is basically start the game all over again. And to do that, I'm just going to broadcast one message, which is start. Okay, simple. And now I'm going to head over to the bird sprite and change all this when green flag is clicked to when I receive start. So when I receive start, I'm going to change this once again to when I receive start. You want to do this for every single when green flag is clicked that you see throughout all the sprites. So you want to change this when green flag click to when I receive start. And I think you, instead of changing it here every time, you can just change it here and just put it in every single time. So I'm going to do that right away. So I'm going to change this green flag once again to when I receive not game over but start. And finally, I'm going to change this to, well, this sprite doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to say when I receive start, actually I'll be hiding the variable score. So I'll factor in that as well. So when I receive start, just hide variable, show variable score. I mean, there we are. Perfect. Now let's actually try it out. So I'm going to hit the green flag, and I'm also going to hide the score variable initially. And you can do that by just going to the thumbnail and saying hide variable score. And we will be showing that once the game actually starts. So I'm going to hit the green flag, and let's click the A key. And as you can see, the Flappy Bird dropped and the thumbnail didn't disappear, but that's because we actually haven't made it hide. So I'm just going to add in one line of code right here which says hide, and this should make sure our program works. So I'm going to click the green flag, A key, and our Flappy Bird is good to go. So this is our Flappy Bird game, and now all that's left is actually enhancing it with adding a bunch of sound effects. So boom, score is 3, perfect. Now all that's left for us is our music. And I've added a bunch of MP3s in the description below, along with the 2 WAV files which are in the Scratch library. So I'm going to start using them right now. Now for the entire sound effect, most of it is going to be controlled from the thumbnail sprite, and I'm going to start with the intro music. So when the green flag is clicked, what we want to do is to start playing the intro music. So to do that, head over to sound and click on sounds, okay? And you want to import a new sound, and in case you see some sound here, don't worry, just delete it. And you want to import a sound, and within sound you want to say upload sound, and you want to click on the specific sound which says intro music. And once you have your music actually pop up, and it may take a few seconds, you actually want to either soften it or louden it depending on how loud or soft you want the sound to be, and then you want to factor in the code. So when the green flag is clicked, you want to play sound or rather start sound intro music, and when the A key is pressed, you want to stop sound intro music. So we will stop all sounds. I think there is a block of code which says stop sound this only, but you can just type in stop all sounds. Okay, it's pretty simple. And once we actually hide and broadcast start, only then do we start with our not intro music, but we start with our main background music. Now keep in mind that this intro music sound would only play once, and that's not exactly what we wanted to do. We don't want it to stop right after the user just sits and waits for 3 minutes or 4 minutes or however long that is. We want it to constantly loop. So in case it finishes, we want it to start again. So in order to do that, what you want to do is to grab in this block of code which says play sound until done, and you want to change that play sound to be intro music. and put that within a repeat until, and I'll explain what I'm doing in a second. So we're going to repeat until, and I'm going to initialize a variable called start game. So start game is going to be set to 1 in case the user presses the A key, and if he doesn't, it's going to by default be set to 0. So we'll be setting start game initially to 0, and then when start key is equals to 1, start game is equals to 1, then this is basically going to stop. So I'm just going to type in, where's that? So in operators equals to 1, and if start game is equals to 1. And this variable just regulates our stuff, by the way. Okay, it's pretty simple. So repeat until start game, where's that? Yeah, here we go. I'm going to hide that variable permanently, and this is going to ensure that our variable loops through if we finally just have one line of code right here which says start game, set start game to 1. There we are. So that's pretty much it. That's going to make sure the loop exits, and then we're going to stop all sounds as well. So that's going to terminate that intro music sound. Now let's get into our main background music. To do that, that's once again pretty simple. You want to grab a when I receive start right there, because that's when our normal background music is going to start. And I'm going to have another variable initialized, and that's going to be called endgame, and that's going to like start game be set to 0 when the start key is when the start is broadcasted, or when the A key is pressed, and when the game is actually over, then that variable's value is going to turn into 1. So initially we'll be setting endgame to be 0, and we will be doing something very similar. So we'll duplicate this message and put it right below, and instead of start game, I'm going to be changing that to end game, and place sound not intro music but background music. And in case you don't see this, what I've basically done is I've just uploaded the background music as well. So just click on upload sound and then click on background music. That's it. So now we'll be just playing sound background music until done, and that is going to be until this end game changes and we stop all sounds, and that is when the game is over. So when game is over, we will just add in one more line of code, or rather two more lines of code. The first one is going to be set where's that? Set end game to 1, and then we'll also stop all our sounds. So you can head over to the sounds tab and just say stop all sounds, and this is going to ensure that all our sounds stop when the end screen actually pops up, and that is exactly what we want. Now that we've finally initialized our music system, to finish off our game, all that we need are the sound effects. Now head over to the bird sprite, because that's where most of our sound effects are actually going to be. And you can see right here, if touching ground or it's touching the pipe, we're going to change y by speed. But if it's if it's not touching ground, we're going to change y by speed. But if it is, then we're going to broadcast game over and hide. Now I'm going to modify this else code quite a little bit, because we want that nice sound effect to actually pop up. So head over to sounds and click on this choose a sound, and you should have a great new screen pop up with a whole bunch of sounds. And you want to search for the sound effect which says boink, just boink, I think. Yeah, this one. So if you don't see this, don't worry, the file that I mentioned will be exported as a WAV and linked in the description below. So you can use that in case you don't see it. In case you do, it's easier for you. You can just click on the sprite and you should have a nice boing actually pop up. Now this is basically 0.32 seconds long, so I can just play that sound without adversely affecting my code. So I'm just going to say play sound boing until done. So that's it. So once this is done, it's going to broadcast game over, and now we can get into our second sound effect. Our second sound effect is going to be unleashed when either the space key is pressed or the up arrow key is pressed. Basically when the user decides to jump with the bird. So at that point in time, what we basically wanted to do is just have the sound effect which says whoosh. So once again, the file will be linked below in case you don't see it, but you can just search through your library for a whoosh, and you can find this one which says, I think, whoop, or you can choose, actually I'm going to choose this low whoosh right here. That's what I'm going to be using. So head over to the code and just say play low whoosh until done, and actually make sure you do it right after you you do all of this. Okay, so this would be pretty essential. Don't do it right before, or you can just say start sound low whoosh and that's going to make sure that it ends basically when it ends, and it would actually move on with your code. So I think this is a better way to write that code. And similarly, you just want to do the exact same thing when the up arrow key is pressed. So just have this block of code which says start sound whoosh. At this point in the video, you'll have a pretty nice working Flappy Bird game, but there's still one bug that hasn't been fixed, and that is the fact that our background never changes when the score goes up in increments of 5. And the reason for this is not because we've coded our stage incorrectly or anything like that, it's because we've never initialized our game over within the background. So what I mean is that we have initialized the game over within the pipe, but the background code starts when the green flag is clicked. So at this stage, the game over variable is going to be equals to what it was when the game actually ended previously. So the game over variable is going to be equals to true initially, and this repeat until loop would never be executed. And that's the reason the background never changes. So to fix this, it's pretty simple. All you have to add is from the variables category, a set game over to be false, and that would make sure that your game actually changes backgrounds when we want it to. And that would be all for your Flappy Bird game. If you've enjoyed making Flappy Bird and you want to impress your friends and family with another game, then please make sure you click on the playlist on your screen right here, and that will take you to a brand new game segment. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next game series.